Hello everyone, and welcome to The Impossible. I am your co-host, Austin, still out here in lovely Utah, and today is post-race day. So yesterday, Saturday morning, had a half marathon in Cedar City, Utah, and throughout this video, throughout this recording, I very much intend on sharing some photos and videos with you from race day, and so that'll be kind of sprinkled throughout the video itself. But I wanted to give you, a recap of the race itself, how the day went, how the race went, and ultimately how I did, which seemed to fare pretty well. So, where to start? So about a month ago, I was told about the Cedar City Half Marathon and 5K, but I did the half by an engineer here in Utah. And as soon as he had told me that it started up in a canyon, went downhill through through a canyon of red rocks, I was pretty much hooked at that point. And then as soon as I went to Google and actually looked up the route, yeah, it was a no-brainer, I have to say. So, and the timing actually worked out very well. So I was already out here for work, and I was able to get registered with ease. Registration was fairly quick, and so being about a month out, I was already in preparation for the full marathon in Columbus, of course, but did have a bit of a catch along the way. For those of you who had listened to our one of our recent episodes, I did my PET scan did come back not so good, and we're having a biopsy to confirm it, but it does look like that I have relapsed, and so that did kind of cancel the full marathon for October for me. But maybe we can still do a half at that point, or if things go a bit worse, at least the 1 mile. So, but this before all that begins, I had this half marathon, and it was still going to work out well. So we continued on in training for this, and so I was getting really excited, really excited. Haven't done a half marathon since late April, early May, so I was a bit nervous, but mostly excited. I have to say, nervous just for my body, but excited for my mind, and knowing that this was going to have plenty of beautiful vistas. So, and that was found to be very true. So, coming up to the week prior, so this past week, I had some prep work to do in terms of getting the proper fuel, getting the proper mindset coming into it. Nutrition was certainly big during this week, so I to try to cut out any unnecessary weight for the week prior, I found myself in a bit of a calorie deficit. Still plenty of protein, a little bit of carbs, but I just wanted to try and kind of again shed off some unnecessary water weight and also a little bit of fat. And I was able to lose 6 pounds within the week, so I was really happy with that. Coming into it, obviously the majority of that's water, but still 6 pounds is quite a lot when you're trying to carry that weight over 13.1 miles over that many steps, because it's quite some time. So at least for me, and so that was deemed a success in my opinion, and then also just collecting the proper nutrition for the day prior and the day of, and now the day after. So lots of protein, but then also a lot of carbs, a lot of clean carbs, a couple of pastries, but I reserve the right to enjoy those. But setting up for day prior, looking at I had some chicken pad thai for lunch, so a lot of noodles, Then I had about 400 to 500 grams of cooked rice with some steak, and that was phenomenal. And then a couple of pastries, some Stinger waffles, just to try to Stinger waffles. I went with my protein shakes, just to add some fast-acting carbs along with that protein to kind of help the protein get to the muscle, and also the point of all these carbs is definitely try to get some water back into the muscles, kind of get them prepped. And yeah, and then about 6 o'clock I headed down south because I was still up here in Salt Lake City on Friday. So then Friday evening I drove down. It's about a 3-hour drive, so got in a little bit late, about 10:15 I got into the hotel down there, which is fine. And I assumed that sleep was not going to be not a whole lot of sleep was going to be achieved that evening, and I was unfortunately found to be also correct in that. But got there, got everything prepped for Saturday morning so that I could just put my gear on, grab the bags, grab the stingers, and go from there. And so got everything prepped. Sleep, again, I got to bed about 11:30, and I woke up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when I was supposed to wake up at 4 a.m. on the dot. So that was a bit strange, I must say. My body was experiencing weird dreams, and so I kept thinking that I had to get up, at 0-100, 0-200, 0-300, because I had set my alarm for 0-400, and I just, for some odd reason, at the top of each hour, I was just waking up thinking that I was late, and I was unable to, or that I had forgotten to hook up with some friends to get out to the race, even though I was only meeting up with one person. And that person wasn't involved with the dreams. It was strange. But also it obviously was just nerves. Again, the last half that I'd done was quite some time ago. So coming into this was mindset-wise was a bit difficult because of the news that I had received that I may have relapsed, and it all kind of caught up to me there Saturday morning when I was my commute to the parking garage that all the runners parked in was only like a 5-minute drive for me, but that 5 minutes seemed like forever. One, it was kind of in the middle of the night, at 04:30, but I was just in a completely different headspace. One that was certainly preparatory for what was about to come, but also one that was very somewhat distracted, very distracted, as to how important this race was, as there's a possibility that I won't be able to do any sizable feat of, strength or endurance for quite a few months coming up. So, it weighed heavily on my mind. And again, I reserved the right to have that, but I was also able to kind of keep myself on track. I pulled up Heilung. Absolutely love listening to them, especially for these bigger moments of endurance or strength. I find a lot of strength for the mental side of it through listening to them. I actually listened to their most recent live performance at the Red Rocks Amphitheater, just one state over, and that performance was breathtaking and impeccable. Almost transcendental, because especially the live the video recording of it that they have on YouTube, it was the visual experience that and the show that they put on was just, that was the transcendental part. I mean, the music alone is, of course, lucid in its own terms or in its own making, but I absolutely love the visual aspect that they put on for this show, especially. It really has a big impact on me, and as it does for millions of others, just how incredible they are. But I watched that, and that really got me into the groove as I was sitting in the parking garage alone, because I got there quite earlier than what I needed to. Again, just the nerves, but I embraced it. So, and then the time came along. I met up with the engineer that told me about it. He was actually getting ready to run. His goal was sub 2, but he was a bit nervous coming in it as well, just with the lack of training. But he actually crushed it. He hit what was it, 155.04, something like that, or 154.54, something. I think it was sub 155, which was it shocked him, but he was super happy with that, and a really good race. And so, but I met up with him, and we got on the buses because we were shuttled up to the top, We were shuttled to the starting line, which was up into the canyons, or canyon, and it was about 10 miles up into the city, or out from the city, my gosh. And it had an elevation of 8,200 feet at 0600, 0630, and then our starting time was 0700. So they had a bunch of fire barrels, which had the Cedar City, half marathon inscribing, but also kind of like the image that they use for it. Really, really cool with the fires going in them. In the dark with the trees in the background, and this little pull-off area is where the starting line was, and the trees back there are really, really cool for the ambiance, for the setting of the starting line. And then they also had a bunch of like those restaurant heating lamps, the higher up ones, a little umbrella on top, and the propane fueled ones. They had a bunch of those, and everybody was crowded around them because it was sub 40 degrees. Probably sub 45. It was a little chilly, but it wasn't too bad with the humidity super low. It wasn't really crisp. And so we're just getting ready. Everybody's using the using the restrooms at this point as well. Quite some lines to the outhouses. I think there were like how many runners were there? I believe there was just under 500 runners in total for the half marathon. I don't have my time card with me, unfortunately. I should have had that for this, but here's a photo of it. And so, yeah, and we're all getting lined up for the start. And nerves were gone by this point. By this point, with the sun, slowly start. We didn't see the sun for the first probably 60 minutes, hour to hour 10 after the actual start, but just because of the mountains due east, but obviously the sky was being lit up slowly but surely over that time, and it was just revealing because driving up it was still 0600, and so it was just dark and you couldn't see anything, but then you could start to see kind of the wonder that this canyon had to offer, and that was the start of something beautiful. It really was. And so, yeah, and so the guy, I think it was a siren went off, not a gun. Siren goes off, so we take off, and the guy I met up with, he deserved to be much ahead of the pack, or much within the kind of the main portion of the pack, and then I was far back. I actually started off. I started off running beside the two. They had pacers for each for every 10 minutes of interval for finish time, and so I got by the 2 hour 40-minute pacers, and I thought if I can keep these two behind me, that's going to be a great PR. And that's what I expected, was to get, that was my goal at least, was sub 240. So we start, we're taking off, and so for those 10.3 miles, that was coming down from the canyon, our slopes for 98% of that time were 2 to 5% grade, or negative percent, grade. A couple of times actually -6 degree grade, and so it was, and this was something that the engineer had kind of warned me about. He's like, hey, you're going to find yourself running pretty quick and having a really fast pace, and then you're not, and then once you get further down the hill, the slope is going to come up and up and up into an even. Once you get down to the town, and then you have another 3 miles, and you'll notice that your pace was way too fast, and you're going to be drained. So just be careful of that. And the first mile, I set a 9:54 pace, which was way too fast, and so I slowed it down a little bit. I went to a 10:15 pace, and that seemed slow. So going into mile 2 and then mile 3, I really didn't want to slow down. I tried to keep the 10:15. I slid into like a 10-minute pace, and then to a 9:50 pace, and sometimes there were moments, at least, that I was extremely distracted by the beauty and the awe of the canyon as we were going down. Because the canyon itself was obviously winding, we were following a creek that eventually turned into a fairly large creek, or wide creek at least, and so it's winding down, and so you just have these different cuts out of different rocks. And they also got a little bit taller as we went down as well, because the road would go down, but the canyon would kind of stay up in terms of elevation. And so just they got taller, and they were wider setting as we went down. And I forget, as we're going, so yeah, definitely enamored the entire time. But as we were going down, this was a really cool effect, and I'll cut in this video as well. But there was there were two bagpipers playing some tune, and they were up on a rock, kind of posted up to the north on the right hand side of the road, and just sitting there playing. Like you heard them at first, and you're like, oh, somebody's playing music, somebody's playing bagpipes over a speaker. No, it were 2 bagpipers playing. It was such a cool experience, and so I took a video of that, and I'll show you too over this moment here. And that was kind of, for me personally, I took that as a bit of motivation, being mostly Scottish in my lineage, and so and also I'm a bit of an emotional person as I'm running, and so just hearing that, it fired me up. It really did. It really did. That kept me going. That definitely didn't help me in slowing down at all, I must say, because I also I continued Heilung playing in my shocks, so I just kept trucking along, and get to mile 4, mile 5, still a bit, still dusk kind of going on. And the canyon was kind of opening up a little bit, some higher peaks, and it was just, again, I was in awe that entire time. The entire time. That was an experience. And it was, so they had an aid station at about 4.1, 4.2 miles. And as I was running by, I was like, well, I just got a power rate at 2.5, so I'm like, I'm gonna skip this. And I was like, hey, in the moment I just forgot the intervals of the stations. I was like, hey, do you guys know when the next aid station is? Thinking that it should have been after mile 6, but I just wanted to make sure. And they're like, oh, we have no idea. And unfortunately, they had said that after I was well after them. So that was cool, but all was well. And so I just kept going, and at the aid station for 6.5, 6.6, so like the halfway point. Gotten up there, and that was the first time that I'd actually stopped to walk. That blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I mean, it was like a mile and a half, 2 miles in my previous half that I had to start walking. Like, I had to. My heart rate was through the roof. Not that I wanted to start walking, but I had to. In this race here, I was able to keep my heart rate, sub 155, and so I just kept going. And then I stopped to get Powerade. I took a couple of electrolyte tablets and got a stinger in with a little bit of caffeine, and then kept trucking. And then it was the next aid station. I stopped to get another Powerade and electrolyte tablets again and another stinger. And then stopped once more in between 8 and 10, and then stopped to grab another Powerade at the 10.1, 10.2, something like that, where the race actually broke off onto a trail that ran in through the town. So we were on the state highway for that 10 point something miles, and then we shoot off. So grabbed a Powerade, had another stinger, had some more electrolyte tablets, and then just took off. And this was on like a little bike path that went through some wonderful park, and then get into town, start winding around, get into like a actual city park on the inside of town, where city parks normally are, Austin, and start winding around, passing some Southern Utah University students that are they're basically making sure that we go on the right path. I don't know if some of them were too happy about being awake for some of them, for some of the racers, they definitely had to be there at 7:45, 8 a.m. For miles 10 and a half, 11 and on. And so some of them were a bit, not overly happy about being awake, but they all had there were certainly varying emotions in terms of encouragement coming from them, but they all said great job and stuff, and it's always best for you to say thank you because they don't have to be there. So that was really cool. And get around, and then it was about 11 miles in, I started walking so that I could make sure that I started walking so I could take the last electrolyte tablets, the last stinger, I got a Powerade as well, and then mile 12 marker came up, and I said, okay, we're gonna hit that, and we're not gonna stop. And so I hit it, took off a little too fast, about an 8.5 minute pace, and then I slowed down to 9.5, and got to about 10-15 pace is what I was at as I rounded the last couple of turns. And you could hear the finish line, but you couldn't see it until the final stretch. And so that was a bit encouraging but discouraging at the same time. It was strange emotions, strange things going on. But got to about 10-15, 10.5 minute pace for the last stretch there, and just kept going. And I was sucking in air. I was like a freight train, just hoofing it. It was rough. That was a rough final stretch, and crossed the finish line with 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 4 seconds was my official time. So that is a 21-minute PR. Yeah. Yep. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Rang the PR bell. Just gave it one ding. I'm not the person that's gonna attract attention, walk up, ring the bell 6 or 7 times, start yelling and screaming. That's not nothing against the individuals that do that. It's to each their own, and whatever that PR means to you, that's what it means to you, and get psyched. Do it, absolutely. That's just not me. I walked up, hit a nice little ding, kept walking, partially because I was distracted because in that last about half mile, I started to lose some of my breathing kind of capacity. So I have a mild case of asthma, one that I was actually able to avoid for, again, the first 95% of the race. And so and also because my inhaler, my reaction to the inhaler, my one side effect is increased heart rate. And before the race and definitely during the race, that's the last thing that I need to be introduced to my already increased heart rate. And so went to the like the helpers that were, we all marked our bags at the beginning of the race to put jackets or anything like that that we took up to the starting race. We signed our bags, and then you pick them up at the end of the race, of course. And the people that had those organized, I went up and I said, hey, ambulance is here, but there's no EMTs. Can you grab somebody? And so, but like, don't, not a rush. I'm alive. I'm fine. I just, want to try to start fighting that now, because I was not close to my inhaler. Unfortunately, I left it in the car at the parking garage. So went in. EMTs got me hooked up with like misted albuterol, which, it's not an emergency setting, but it definitely helps in the moment, and it really did. And I declined going to the hospital, which, the EMTs were super cool, super cool. They realized I was fine, but they checked vitals and did what was necessary, at least on their part, to check some boxes. But they took care of me really nice, and I was also thankful that the ambulance was pretty close to the finish line, but how, like, I didn't get into the back of the ambulance because I'm like this, they actually, he went to open the door and I was just like, no, it's I'll be fine. We can go around to the side. So I was, sitting there on the side. I didn't want to create any attention. It wasn't necessary. Nothing bad was going on. And that's when the engineer came up, and we started talking and catching up and everything. And he told me his time, and I told him mine. And we were congratulating each other, both definitely feeling it. And we went over. He had already obviously sat there for 25 minutes just for me. So kudos for him. Not that I didn't expect him to, but it was just really cool to see him. And so he, we went over to the sustenance tent, and they had a couple of like local food vendors as well. Like there was a fruit and yogurt parfait kind of like food truck. A couple of places that had like real food, like meatballs and like oatmeal things and stuff like that. And then he had the tent that was just like ran by the actual race that had just fruit and granola bars and fruit grain bars galore, and then all the drinks. And so I grabbed a couple of Gatorades, and and they're announcing the winners and stuff as people were still finishing. But I mean, it was almost 2 hours and 45 minutes into the race by now, and so still people crossing. They were announcing the winners, posted our photos. Here's a photo of myself in front of the 13.1 with the medal, which the medal is a really cool part. Bear with me one second. So here is the medal for the race. Huge. And has a kilt on it, which I have to look more into the race itself, but I didn't expect that to be part of it. I mean, obviously the bagpipers were a really cool touch, but I didn't know that there was this much kind of history behind the race itself. This was, they began the race, early 2010s. And so, the race has some history to it, and I would love to, I need to look more into it, but I think this is a race that I'd like to do many more times, I must say, just for those views. I mean, they were immaculate. I couldn't take my eyes off of some of those, off of some of the cliffs, how they were cut, kind of, a lot of them were rounded. They weren't like, there weren't a whole lot of sharp edges at first. They were rounded edges because what we ran down was an ancient river. I mean, that used to be, water well above our heads in terms of, the height that, that used to be a river. that cut through there, and slowly it's dried up. And so seeing all those different formations and how they were cut by the water was just breathtaking. I don't know enough words to describe how beautiful this race was. I need a thesaurus. Where's my thesaurus? Give me a thesaurus. And so, yeah, I absolutely enamored, flabbergasted, gobsmacked. It was such a good time. And the PR, I did better than my last race. That's all that mattered. 21-minute PR. You can probably add some minutes to that because of the downhill slope for those 10 miles for the majority of the race. That certainly added some time. Not to take any fame away from my determination and consistency. Some of my pace was helped by gravity, and so that's and that's something that everybody holds for this race in particular. It's being downhill for 75% of the race, 80% of the race. Yeah, of course you're gonna have some pretty good times, and so. But ultimately, I had a fantastic time just being there. I'm thankful, so thankful for having that opportunity. I'm so thankful for it working out time-wise for me with what is most likely to come over these next 4, 5, 6, 7 months. And ultimately, I very much plan on doing this again, no matter my situation. This time next year, I very much intend on doing this half, because it's one not to miss, I must say. Even if that means taking vacation, even if that means being on the other side of the country, I will make it out here for as many of the Cedar City Half Marathons as I can. I most certainly will be doing that. That was an absolutely brilliant time. Brilliant time. So, yeah, that was my experience with the race. Coming after it, I went back to the hotel. They gave me a suite, so I had a bathtub and a shower. It was a handicap suite. Not a fancy hotel. It was a courtyard. So they gave me a suite, with an upgrade, and I'm actually kind of thankful that it happened, because this type of hotel only has walk-in showers. And so with it being this, I actually had a bathtub, and I was just like, ice bath, let's go. And as soon as I got back, I set my stuff on the ground, wanting to cry. honestly, because that's the one thing about going downhill that entire time, is that you're catching yourself to a degree to slow yourself down. And so and also I didn't have a good experience with my shoes. Don't tell our fearless leader, but I was not thrilled with this particular brand, and so my feet and my ankles were absolutely shredded, and then my quads and hip flexors especially, they still are just done. It's been very difficult to move today. Very difficult. I went from 29 to 79 just like that. So that was not the most fun morning that I've had today, but all is well. So I got in for the ice bath. I was the ice machine, thankfully there was one on the floor, and only I was at the end of the building, but it was in the middle of the building, thankfully. So went down the hallway 5 times with the recycling bin buckets that we're given here, just throwing ice as the water's filling up, and got in there. I did 4 minutes in total, but only three and a half for like my entire legs, and then I obviously getting in, waiting a second, and then waiting a second before I get out, of having like halfway up the calf down in the water to kind of help with the feet and the ankles. And I'm very thankful that I did that, because my ankles, my feet are definitely, I think they could have felt a lot worse today. And most certainly just with experience in other training runs that are close to being this length. So yeah, got the ice bath, laid down, and actually took a nap for about a half hour. And taking in electrolytes and some carbs, but I couldn't eat a big meal, and I didn't want to eat a big meal. I did not want to do that. And I'm thankful that I didn't, because then I had a 3-hour drive back up here to Salt Lake. And that, I was ruining that journey, but made it up here, stressed out, exhausted, done with the day. And then I had to deal with, Saturday afternoon traffic. That was the worst. Returned those shoes, those race day shoes. They were no fun. I did not like them. Not at all. And so I got those returned, headed over to my favorite coffee shop, Alpha Coffee, and got myself a matcha latte, and I think I got a protein. Did I get a protein bowl? Yeah, I got a protein bowl, which is like a quinoa bowl with some chicken in it, and a coconut curry sauce, which was finally here. So thankful, so happy to see the coconut curry back, and got it with that, and it was delicious. Oh, because this was, 4 o'clock, 4:30 now from the race. Then ended for me at just before 9:30. Finally getting some actual sustainable food in, and that was that bowl was fantastic. Still kind of felt weird, but I felt good getting some actual food in. And yeah, and then got back here, took another shower, and that one was a nice warm shower, and laid down, and it was like 8-ish o'clock. I was out cold. So happy to be. Obviously, I wanted to go to sleep, but there for a couple hours, I was just engaging in some monotony by watching some comedy on YouTube, and passed out. I woke up at passed out about 8:30. I woke up at 6:30 today. So, solid 10 hours. I'll take that. And I know I'm going to sleep well. I'm going to sleep probably even more tonight, and I'm looking forward to that. Gotten some really good food in today. So got another protein bowl. Got a ham and cheese quiche. That's always good. And got a couple of the protein Pop-Tarts and a lot of water. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I've had over just over 3 liters of water today. 1.5 liters of that has been electrolyte infused liquids. So that's I have a brand here that actually Alpha Coffee carries that has, it's 400 milligrams of sodium, 300 milligrams of potassium, and it's like 60 or 70 milligrams of magnesium, which is not the greatest, but it's in a 1/2 liter bottle, so it's quick to put down. Not heavy electrolytes like like one of the more electrolyte heavy introduced drinks that you can get at like a gas station. I was able to get a couple of those in today, and then I made a 1 liter bottle of what was it called? Relight, I think, infused with that, and that's an electrolyte addition right there. Each scoop is 850 milligrams of Redmond's real salt, 450, I think, milligrams of potassium, lots of magnesium, and then all your vitamins, minerals, which it's a heavy ingredients list, but it's ultimately fantastic, especially for recovery. And so I did 2 scoops into the liter bottle, so I mean that's quite a lot of sodium and all that stuff, but I felt, I can't tell you how much better I felt after that, because I had that like the beginning of the morning, of course. And so got that in, got all the food in today, and yeah, feeling good. My body does not feel good whatsoever. It's, again, I've been walking very gingerly today, and I think not trying to put on a show for people out and about, but I did everything in my power to not look like I was hurting. But I don't think I was overly successful in that, because there were some moments where I got up out of a chair and I I would just, naturally react and going like, oh. Oh my. And a couple people, this was 7 a.m. in the coffee shop, and so there were only a few people in there. And so this one couple at a table next to me just kind of looked up at me, and we caught eyes, and I was just like, I just ran a half marathon. I'm fine. And they were like, oh, how'd you do? And we started talking, but I didn't want to like, getting up and just not explain myself. Just walk away. Oh my. Oh shoot. Crack myself up sometimes. So it's been a bit of a rough day, but ultimately I'm looking back on it. And as we've discussed before in the adaptation series, there were moments in that race, no matter how taken back I was by the views, that I had to fight through some things. I had to hold steady, hold fast for some very unfavorable wins. But having this impossible mind coming into every challenge that I face, and this being one of those, I knew that at the end I would look back very, very favorably upon this experience. And that's what I've done. That is absolutely what I've been able to do here, is be extremely thankful for this experience, to be thankful to have shared this experience with others, to have seen the views that I have, but ultimately to have felt the pain that I did during the race, after the race, and today, and what I will feel in the future. It would be almost impossible for me to share with you how thankful I am of this experience. So to wrap it up here, the race went well. I feel pretty good. Once I'm done recording this, I'm gonna go eat some more food. That's been the biggest thing today, is getting a bunch of clean calories and a lot of protein in today. So and a lot of water. There's water right there, and so we can always look into the future, especially when we have very degrading news hit us about what the future could entail, most likely will entail. And we can let that beat us down. But that is extremely unnecessary. We control how we react to these situations, to these possibilities. We are in charge of how we react to those and how we move forward. Because the unfavorable winds that I may have faced yesterday, we look upon them with favor. And into the future, there is a very, very large, very intense storm brewing. And I am in charge. I take the power in how I look at the storm, how I plan to attack, and how I look and how I move through that storm. And I have zero intentions of having a setback. I will take these unfavorable winds. turn them into pure favor. Not only for myself, but for you. With however, maybe I can say that one more time, with however I can be of help and service. It's crucial, I feel, for me to stand firm, stand tall, and in these cases, stand proud. Pride's a very dangerous thing if you let it to go on without control. But I do stand proud in this battle, in this fight, in this war, and in this storm that I'm going to be facing. And I will turn those winds favorable. And I will come out on top when everything is settled. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with us on this journey. And us here at Impossible Performance strive to build a culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth, in constant pursuit of the impossible. Take care, and as always, be impossible. Oh, I'm not trying to. It hurts.